Chapter 10. Evasion. The world is a funny place. You can sacrifice your life and soul for the world, and it will never return your kindness. The world is such a cruel mistress. Samantha was running later than usual. Her heart was pumping in her chest heavily, feeling the sense of anxiety swelling over her like a plague. She sat in the shuttle, anxiously tapping her finger on the cold window as she watched the pedestrians. With every stop, every moment the shuttle stayed still, she felt like she was going to be late to Park Street. She nervously chuckled, such a silly thing to be concerned about, being late of all things. Sam, you need to stop bringing your work home with you. The shuttle dropped her right off at South Station. She walked up the stairs and stepped into the busyness of downtown Boston. The cars drove by, blasting their music with their windows down. Buses made their stops right next to her, letting numerous people off. She smiled at the people as they came off, either distracted with their phones in their hands, nodding off into some world. Others seemed jaded, as if they were repeating the same routine again and again and again. She walked west on Summer Street. She paid close attention to the cars and the streetlights. Surrounded by tall skyscrapers, she felt insignificant in a city filled with so many skyscrapers representing decades of hard-working individuals. She wanted that success. She crossed the street onto the side of a convenience store. There were several men there, some lively, smoking cigarettes or joints, with no care in the world. Samantha had always been a people watcher, but not often did people stick out to her as much as the man sitting across the road on a side street. He was perhaps in his 40s with an ungroomed beard with white streaks in it. His eyes looked exhausted, much like Ted's, and in his mouth was a cigarette, and in his left trembling hand was a paper bag, held in such a way where she could tell plainly there was a bottle in there. Whiskey, gin, bourbon, or some other cheap but strong liquor, as his breath reeked of it. Hanging around his neck was a pair of dog tags. His coat was tattered, with an American flag on the shoulder, also fading in colour. She sighed as she looked around the area for a bank. No, that won't help him. She walked into the convenience store. She looked around, speeding her way into the refrigerated section, and pulled out 2 bottles of water. I might as well, while I'm here. She turned and looked around for something suitable and nutritious to eat. One where she didn't risk killing him because she didn't know if he was allergic to anything. She found a salad with chicken in it. Better than nothing. She didn't bother with any plastic silverware, there likely was none to be found. She walked out of the convenience store with her purchases and walked down the side street, Arch Street. The man's eyes were fading out into sleep. She went up to him and placed one of the bottles of water next to him and left the salad next to that. She left him to drift off in his sleep. Images and video clips flashed across her mind of soldiers laying on the street with nowhere to go, no one to call, and were just left, abandoned on the street. I wish I could do more. You all deserve so much more than this. Sam assumed this man was one of the tens of thousands of veterans who were left abandoned by the country they sacrificed so much for. She had enough money to live off, that was true, but she had little in the way of spare change. She didn't have her big refrigerated freight customer for very long, and she was waiting for her first commission check, which would allow more freedom to help strangers she walked into, like this one. But there's only so much one person can do. She walked up Summer Street. She was in no hurry to get to the study on time, as the topic was indeed depressing and she was already late, and she had already decided this was a silly thing to be anxious about. Despite her rise in anxiety, she intended to walk ever so patiently. She walked through the streets, watching the lights flicker on and some of the summer performers playing around in the trafficless square that separated coffee shops, clothing stores and downtown crossing over towards Washington Street. The moon peered out from behind a veil of clouds from on high. She looked up as the blue mystic light shone down on her. She took a deep breath as she kept walking further on the street. Summer turned into winter real fast. The moonlight was hidden by skyscrapers, but at the end of this street was Tremont. The corner of Tremont and Winter was decorated with the state flower of traffic cones. Parked behind was a police cruiser with the officer leaning against his car, looking at the traffic. His eyes seemed emotionless as she passed by. She waited with a score of people of diverse origins, waiting at the wide crosswalk to cross Tremont Street, the wide street that always had construction here for some reason or another. It's been the same for years. What are they doing? She wondered. The traffic lights turned from green to yellow and at last red. The cars came to a halt, except the one who was speeding through the yellow light and just missed it. Massachusetts drivers, you can't trust them. They're insane. The cross lights permitted her to cross the street. She ran across diagonally to Park Street because the window for authorised walking was limited. On the front steps of the church were people sitting on the marble steps, many with a joint hanging from their lips. Their clothes were tattered and not well kept. There were flies buzzing around, and she wasn't surprised. One of them smelled like they soiled themselves, the rank reaching her nostrils. She assumed they were homeless, and this was the one place they could socialise, seemingly without the police arresting them for loitering. Not wanting to be rude, she briskly walked up Park Street to the glassy entrance of the cafe. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. It was buzzing a lot these days, between high-alert news to grocers and reefer trucks going out of business, which was good for her but terrible for the competition. She felt bad for them, and that was the one part of her job she hated. She had to beat those rates down with the drivers. Even if they were desperate to get out of Maryland or California, they'd take any rate. Today, the truck driver was beat down so low, she was certain the driver took a $200 loss taking the load. She pulled out her phone and opened the email. Samantha Harris, driver picked up PO 3840172 at Shed, Baltimore, Maryland. 18:34 p.m. CI 15:34 p.m. CO 18:34 p.m. Groceries. 30 pallets sideways. Outbound to Cincinnati, Ohio. Regards, after call. She let out a sigh of relief. It was a close one, the load never got picked up. But something was in Ohio, enough where the driver was willing to take a steep loss on it. He'll make up for it. She smiled as she walked up the street. Her phone buzzed again. She looked at it again before turning to the glass doors, reading, "Breaking news! China enters in trade war with USA." Staring at it, her hand trembled with the phone. She sat down on the stairs for while she read the article. News was filled with nothing but horror stories these days. Europe seemed to be in flames, and Asia was not far behind it, what with all the declarations of war and last-minute allegiances that occurred with the dissolvement of NATO. What were they thinking? USA seemed to be out of it for the most part. For that, at least, she was relieved. She didn't want to think about what a war with USA would be like. As it stood, the USA seemed to be out of everyone's conflict since about 10 years ago. According to White House officials, negotiations with important nations which disbanded from NATO are falling through. The world is in shambles right now, and the only thing that is certain is uncertainty. USA is trying to maintain relations with nations formerly within NATO after what they call it a colossal mistake. Eastern and Western European countries are at war with one another, and many nations in Africa have followed suit. Fortunately, the instability hasn't quite made it to the Americas, but White House officials state it is only a matter of time. The world is filled with uncertainty. White House officials announced that it has entered a trade war with China. They implied that negotiations went nowhere and that China was not amiable with them. When asked further about the future with China, White House officials stated that the future is uncertain and updates will follow. However, they are anticipating a declaration of war from China. Opinion? It seems rather unclear why the US would enter a trade war with China. It's even more unclear as to why they're anticipating war, unless nations are like dominoes, next to one another. Once one falls, another falls, tumbling after the one next to it. There's little information being revealed to us, and our nation's leaders are hiding something from us. What a surprise, she said sarcastically to herself. She looked up to the sky, now empty. She grimaced as she put her phone in her lap. She bowed her head down as she began to pray silently to herself. After her silent prayer, she looked at her watch. It was 7:27 p.m. Large group was over or ending. She stood up and went inside and went to the welcome table. The receptionist was still very much disinterested as he was paying attention to something on his computer screen. She pulled out a name tag, wrote her name on it, and placed it on her suit. She then took out a cup and put it underneath a cheap coffee machine, placing a coffee cup in the machine and clamped it back down, waiting for the coffee to drip. As her coffee finished pouring out, the rest of the members of the cafe were walking out of the fellowship hall and into their various small groups. Samantha followed as Jennifer came out. "Hi," Jennifer called out, running to Sam's side. "Isn't it a little late for coffee?" "Too late and coffee should never be in the same sentence," Sam answered, smiling back at her. Jennifer and Sam walked side by side like two best friends in middle school. "Hey, you didn't by any chance see Ted out there, did you? On your way in?" Jennifer asked. She still had that giddy smile on her lips. "No, I can't say I have," Sam answered, confirming her suspicion that Jennifer might have a thing for Ted. "Did he not show up?" "No, maybe it's nothing. Maybe he'll be here shortly. He did say he was coming back," Jennifer said. "You seemed to get along with him well last Tuesday," Samantha responded. "Yes, I did. He seems pleasant enough, oddly romantic." Jennifer snickered as they turned the corner into the granary room, getting into their corner of the table, waiting for others to start trickling in. Well, you did say once you prefer a man in a candlelight setting, like a romantic emphasis from a Jane Austen novel. Which one did you want? Was it Knightley or Darcy? Is he a keeper? If only I could get those knightly qualities in someone like Darcy, she laughed. Hard combination to come by. Ted could be knightly, she joked. I get that, Sam replied. No Ted tonight? Tim asked as he sat down next to them. Regrettably no, Jennifer replied, looking at him in the eye. I was really looking forward to seeing him again. Don't you have his number? Sam asked. Text him. I'm not going to pressure him just yet, Jennifer smiled suspiciously. You can't just push him to come if he doesn't want to. Look, if he doesn't show up, I'll text him and tell him he's missed. Fair enough, Samantha said. She's totally into him. And she was amazed at Jennifer's self-control, not texting Ted right away, or so she said. Samantha turned to Tim. Where's Michael? He was with me a short while ago, but he said he had to go back to the office to check on emails. He's got some breaking news or some bother that he thinks is going to affect him, he replied. He said he'll meet us at Terry's. Did he say what it was about? Samantha asked. Something to do with China, Tim answered. I see, he probably has to work another hour to read the room, Sam suggested, assuming it would take that long for Michael to get a grasp on what was likely to happen to his account with work. Jack interrupted everyone. Welcome to Cafe, welcome to Connecting Group. So that we can all get a sense of one another, I'll start. Say your name, where are you from, what brings you to Boston? And the icebreaker, he said as he scratched his neck as he looked up to the ceiling. If you could meet any person, living or dead, real or fictitious, who would it be? My name is Jack. I'm from Houston, Texas, and I work as a nuclear physicist at a nearby nuclear power plant. I came to Boston for work. If there's someone I would like to meet, Julius Robert Oppenheimer. I'm really interested in his thought process in the atom bomb. They all went down the line, introducing themselves with elation, giving them their background information and locality. It was routine for everyone, but the differing perspectives always kept things interesting. Even though Sam had known Michael, Tim and Jennifer the most closely, she couldn't say she knew everything about them. The line finally made it to Tim. My name's Tim. I'm from Colorado, Denver specifically. I came to Boston for college and I settled here over in Dorchester. If I could meet anyone, living or dead, I'd have to say Jesus. No, 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 Jennifer exclaimed, pointing at him. No, bad Tim, bad. No cop-outs. We all want to meet Jesus. No, I demand a do-over. The room settled with laughter. But I really want to. Tim, bad, bad Tim. No, 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 she exclaimed. Give us something juicier than that. Fine, Tim chuckled. Come back to me. Cheater, she elbowed him. My name's Jennifer. I'm originally from upstate New York and I moved to Boston for a change in scenery. New York is terrible. I'm a biological researcher right around the corner. If there was anyone I wanted to meet, dead or living, real or fiction, well, King Arthur. I've always loved his tales, as heavily fabricated as they are. He was such the romantic. Not Mr. Darcy, Sam joked. Oh please, Darcy and Arthur, there just isn't any comparison, she said. The room was filled with laughter. It was clear that Jennifer was the life of the group, or the class clown. Sam wondered how she behaved at work. She let her own laughter subside. Well, my turn. My name's Samantha. I also moved here for work after college. I'm moving back. I was from Peabody, went to school down in Virginia, and I'm relocating back up here when I took a job as an account executive for a logistics brokerage. She began. If there is anyone that I want to meet, living or dead, and not Jesus, since that's off the table. There was another chuckle across the room. Well, let's go historical, shall we? I've always wanted to meet Joan of Arc. Her story sits a special way with me. As you can see, we are a very diverse group of people, Jack said. So, if any of you are new here, and I think there are a few of you, we just started Ecclesiastes. We're going into the second chapter, so, without further ado... Samantha joined everyone at the back end of the bar of Terry Nation. It was a slow night. There was no one except the food runner, and Scott, who seemed to be very happy with bright shining eyes and a smile past that thick black beard. Samantha, Erin and Jennifer sat together at the bar, as Tim and Brian were chatting away behind them, not ready to get a drink. What are we having today? And no Michael? Scott asked. Nay, Jennifer began. Well, the eccentric drinker should be coming in rather shortly, or so he said. He did, but Tim said that, and you know how spontaneous Michael can be. He might just not show up, Sam replied. Who did Tim say wasn't coming? Came a loud, obnoxious voice behind them. Sam, Erin and Jennifer looked behind to see Michael smiling down on them, his hands resting on Erin and Jennifer's shoulders. You, Jennifer said. Dang it! And here I thought I was going to have a normal drink for once, like some brandy, a glass of wine, a beer, or even some rum and coke. Oh well, I guess my dream died early tonight. No one's stopping you, Michael laughed, turning to Scott. Bartender special, whatever that is. You're stopping me, Jennifer smirked. Make that 2, and for God's sake don't spit in it like you did 3 weeks ago. That was sweat, Scott laughed. I was joking, Jennifer replied. So was I, Scott sneered as he cleaned the bar top and ducked down to get some glasses. Just the dark Krellick, Erin asked. Cab for me, please, Sam asked. Make that together, Jennifer said. She slipped her card over to Scott. Close it out, if you would. Scott hastily went over to pour the wine and simple beer for Erin and Sam. He sliced some cucumbers, mixing in muddled mint and blueberries, poured in some vodka and soda water, and what Sam guessed was simple syrup, and he started shaking them all together. I don't see Ted. I take it he elected to go home earlier today, Michael asked. No, he didn't show up, Samantha said. Erin, you work with him, right? Michael asked. How is he? I don't know. He made another big deal again. This was one of those one-offs and not likely something he's going to repeat, she said as she sipped her beer. I don't know how he does it. He must be really lucky or have some insider information, but even if he did, there is no way he can accurately predict when something will just plummet. Even with inside information, he can't make those calls at precisely the right time. Yet he is making those calls at precisely the right time. He seemed fine, though, but when he made the deal, he seemed disappointed. How much was the deal worth? Michael said, his eyes widened in curiosity. Our manager clocked it in at 350k, she said. I don't care who you are, no one can predict the market the way he does. He is consistently beating it, even with all of the uncertainty in the world. It's like he can see the future. But why was he disappointed? Sam asked. Shouldn't he be happy with that? I don't know. I know I'd love a deal like that. But I am nowhere near to his expertise, actually, Erin explained. He also has the nasty habit of leaving late and arriving early. However, he left earlier today in the middle of a meeting. Scott came back with the drinks. They were identical and had a foggy colour to them. He slid the drinks on the table to Michael and Jennifer. Jennifer took a sip. Wow, so this is what it's like to be on Cloud 9. Tell me you didn't spit in it, did you? Michael took a sip of his. Just his, Scott answered, laughing because he wasn't serious. Michael coughed and spat it out. Now, Michael, I'm sure he's joshing you, Jennifer sneered. Who even says that anymore? Michael chuckled and his smile lit up. I said what I said. She took another sip. She licked her lips. Not bad, this one. Hey, Scott, Sam asked. He was about to turn to another guest before he turned back to her. Yeah, Sam? That man that we met 2 weeks ago over in the corner, has he been coming here often? Yes, he usually just gets a glass of wine and some potatoes, he answered. He's always pleasant. He didn't show up last week, though. Sam knew that to be true. Wait a minute. Last week? Do you mean he was here earlier? Yes, he left 15 minutes before you arrived, he answered, turning away to address the rest of his guests around the bar. That's not good, Erin said. I'll try to talk to him tomorrow if I can. I have plenty of reasons to. I can't say I'm surprised, Michael commented, sipping his drink, whatever it was. After all, the discussion we had was depressing. And to continue it today would have been worse, Sam admitted. It is depressing if you don't finish the context, Jennifer commented. The moral of Ecclesiastes was and always will be is that if this world is all there is and God doesn't exist, anything we do is pointless. Our friends are pointless, our family is pointless, our accomplishments don't mean anything, and even our marks on history are pointless as they won't stand forever, she sighed. But that doesn't mean we should stop trying to live our lives. She pulled out her phone and scrolled through her contacts. She texted a message. I just texted him. Hopefully he'll say something. I'm sure it's nothing, Michael said. Besides, the world is crazy right now. I wouldn't be surprised if he's just exhausted all the time and needs a break. I haven't done stocks, but I imagine it's exhausting work. Yeah, it is, Erin said, taking a gulp from her beer. You have to pay attention to everything that's going on in the world. Literally anything could affect the market, from good news, bad news, global news, a shipping company goes out of business, or even the materials of certain commodities skyrocket into the air. The more information one has, the better. The problem is there is so much information to digest, and not every single thing is going to affect the market. Like, Michael, did you read about that trade war thing? Yeah, that's why I wasn't at cafe today, he answered. I read the same thing too, said Sam. Yeah, well, it's like this. Something like that is undoubtedly going to affect the market. It's probably going to crash. My assumption, of course, Erin replied, tilting her arm as if to illustrate a graph. Now, let's say that trade war was with China and Russia instead of the US. There's a high likelihood that it will affect the market with increased commodity prices, since we get a lot of business from China. There's no guarantee that that trade war will directly affect our market. Its effect on the market would be indirect to us over here in the US, but it will likely affect it, if not immediately. But there's no promise that it will send the market down. Many people will assume that it will and then sell their assets, hoping to buy them all back when it goes below. This is called shorting a stock. But the way the market works, that kind of behaviour may drive the value of the assets up instead of down, causing a lot of people to lose out on money. But since it's us, I'm sure the market's going to crash. It's just a matter of when. Samantha was annoyed. There were way too many variables with finance, stocks specifically, to care about it. Honestly, she never got into finance for that very reason, and she didn't care to have it repeatedly explained to her. Well, that is going to make my head hurt. I'll stick to my 401k, thank you very much, Jennifer said. So, what's everyone doing Saturday? I'm free, Michael said, without skipping a beat. Erin and Sam both nodded. Excellent, it's decided then. I'll see all of you Saturday, and Tim. Hopefully I can get Ted to come, Jennifer said, clapping her hands. What are we doing, and where are we going? Michael asked. Why, my house, silly. She smiled at him with her bright smile. Game night, of course. I have a little game we play there. It's a great way to get to know your friends. Okay, time? Noon is fine. I've got the refreshments already arranged.